Okay, well, it's a new week in our class on teaching and learning with digital technology. And this week is talking about meaningful learning again. So last week you learned about some particular elements of meaningful learning, including active, constructive, and authentic learning. This week, on January 23rd through the 28th, we move into intentional and cooperative learning. And then we have a meaningful learning wrap-up. And then you'll read chapter 10 and a few more readings as well. There's a meaningful learning handout to look at that you can keep, and then the epilogue as you finish your learning of meaningful learning. That's kind of redundant anyway. So meaningful learning, you're going to do a discussion board as well, and you're going to pick either intentional or cooperative learning and then research this element as you have read through these presentations and so forth. And then post a good example of how this element would look in a real learning situation. And it's like the discussion from last week, basically. But of course, finally, you have the meaningful learning assignment. This is due on January 28th at 11:59 p.m. So that's this Saturday, so be aware of that. Again, your job is to go through to define, explain, and give a good example of each of the 5 elements of meaningful learning in your own words. And you can do this. You can write it up first if you want to, but you'll need to make it into some kind of online format, including a poster or a podcast or a storybook or a concept map or a presentation or a comic book, etc. And then you'll be graded according to this rubric here. One thing I do want you to be aware of and to show you is a couple of examples of past assignments that can help you to understand what this assignment's about. And here's one. This is a storybook created using Storybird from a past student. And this gives a story of Little Fox learning about what are some of the characteristics of meaningful learning. So they kind of weaved it into a nice story, although they didn't have to, which was kind of creative. And so this one talks about how we learn and active learning. And this one talks about a little bit more about active learning on the page. And this one also talks about constructive learning and all the elements of meaningful learning. It defines and explains and gives an example of each. Here's another one. This is an infographic or poster that someone created and did pretty well with meaningful learning. So you have active, constructive, and then we go down intentional, authentic, and cooperative. And so there's some examples. There's an explanation of each one, a definition, and an example over here of meaningful learning. And then here's a toon one using a cartoon. And let's see if I can get it to come up here. It takes a minute to bring this one up, apparently. So, but what this student did was they created a toon book using the cartoon tool, and so it had cartoons about meaningful learning. Let's see if it can load here. It's just a little bit slower loading today. Maybe my internet's going slow. Okay, so you can kind of get the idea even though this page hasn't loaded yet. There we go. Staff meeting today, somebody comes in to tell them about the meaningful learning framework and explains the different elements of learning and provides examples of each element. And so you've got a nice little book that has each element of intentional learning, cooperative learning, all the 5 different learning elements of the meaningful learning framework. So that's really your task, is to create something like these, but not exactly like these, because it does have to be in your own words. You can create it in multiple different formats like I said. So hopefully that's clear enough to you as we go along here in the course. But yeah, that's basically your job, is to watch the presentations, do the readings, do the discussion, and also submit by the end of Saturday your meaningful learning assignment. So good luck on this week, and have a wonderful week.